when you start thinking like Jesus, when you start thinking like the kingdom, what seems irrational to the world seems reasonable in the kingdom. The writer of Hebrews tells us why that was reasonable. He said, even if I offered Isaac on the altar and he died, God was able to raise him from the dead. So he never saw Isaac as dead. That's strange. Why was he taking the risk? Because it wasn't a risk to him. I've been studying this for a while, and one of the seasons I was studying this, I asked God, why didn't you give us like a failure example? That happens in life. You try, you fail. And God spoke to me and said, in the kingdom, you never fail. See, we measure it by the world's standards of did it increase? Do you have more money? Or do you have more success? Are you finally married now? We measure it in those standards, but in the kingdom, it's never measured by that. You're not measured by the results, you're measured by the faithfulness. Paul writes this, he says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God brought the increase. My grandfather says it like this. He says, if you don't quit, you'll win. And Paul would write it in Galatians. He says, be not weary in well-doing, for in due season you will reap if you faint not. If God promised it, he'll perform it. But there's a season in there you have to continue to believe him and trust him. And if you stay faithful in the season, you will see the reward. And even if you fail in between, you're like, but what about when I fall? What about when I fail? Paul writes this to Timothy, even when you're faithless, God remains faithful because he can't deny himself. There's a covenant you have with God. What does a covenant mean? It's like marriage, till death do us part. God has a covenant, a promise with you, but the promise is not based between you and God. It's based between the Father and Jesus. Come on, two immutable objects that will not change have made a covenant with each other so that the covenant cannot fail. And when you say yes to Jesus, you get to step into that covenant where it's no longer based on your performance, it's based upon the cross.